The thing is, I did not start dating him because I loved him. Not at first. I started dating him because he looked like the kind of man who would be grateful forever. He was quiet, awkward, always standing outside the circle, and I thought that meant I was above him. By the time his phone rang at dinner, everyone at the table had already laughed at him with me. Then one voice on speaker made them stop laughing. My name is Delaney Price. I was 27, and I worked as an assistant brand strategist at a boutique marketing agency. The thing is, I knew how rooms worked. I knew who had a place, who had an image, and who stood beneath the light without being seen. That was how I first saw Adrian Vale in college. He sat in the campus cafe near the vending machines, always with the same old backpack and the same plain grey hoodie. His hair was neat, his notebook was neat, even the way he held his pen looked careful. He was not ugly. That would have made the story too simple. He was quiet in a way that made people forget to include him. I told Tessa he looked lonely. She said he looked like someone who thanked professors for homework. I laughed because that was our humour then. We had a circle. We had a table. We had people who looked over when we entered a room. Adrian did not have that. So when I started talking to him, I called it kindness. He helped me with a presentation first. I was stuck on a campaign idea, and he passed by my table and said the message would be stronger if I stopped trying to sound clever and made the benefit clear. Tessa raised her eyebrows at me after he left. She said the quiet boy had one useful thought. I said he was harmless. Adrian began walking me back to my dorm after late study sessions. He remembered that I hated lemon in water. He waited outside my statistics class when it rained and gave me his umbrella without making a speech about it. The thing is, I liked that. I liked him beside me when nobody was watching. When people were watching, it became harder. At a party in the dorm kitchen, two girls asked why I was dating the quiet guy from the cafe. I told them I was doing community service. They laughed. Tessa laughed too. Adrian was close enough to hear part of it. Later, outside under the yellow dorm lights, he asked softly if something had changed between us when other people were around. I told him he was overthinking a joke. He nodded once. He did not argue. That was the first time I learned how easy it was to make him smaller. By the second semester, the jokes had a routine. They started behind Adrian's back, which made them feel lighter, safer, less like cruelty and more like social language. The thing is, everyone had a role in college. Tessa was the fearless one. Mark was the loud one. Brianna was the careful one who laughed after checking the room first. I was the girl who knew how to make any table listen. Adrian was the quiet boyfriend I had pulled into our circle. That was how I described him. I said he was my quiet boyfriend, my charity boyfriend, my campus outsider with good notes and no edge. People laughed because I made it easy for them. I smiled when I said it. I touched his arm when I said it in front of him. I softened the words with affection so nobody had to ask if there was something ugly underneath. Adrian kept showing up anyway. He helped me move from one dorm building to another when the elevator broke. He carried boxes while Mark stood downstairs making jokes about Adrian finally getting upper body training. Adrian did not answer that. He only asked where I wanted the heavy box placed. I told Mark that Adrian's best quality was following directions. Everyone laughed. Adrian looked at me for 1 second longer than usual. Then he carried the box into my room. Later, when the hallway smelled like dust and cheap pizza, he asked why I had let Mark talk about him that way. His voice was not angry, it was specific. He said Mark had called him my unpaid assistant 3 times that afternoon, and I had added to it each time. I told him Mark talked like that to everyone. Adrian said Mark did not talk like that to me. That sentence should have made me pause. Instead, I heard accusation. I heard him trying to pull me down to his level, where every joke needed a meeting and every laugh had to be examined. I told him he needed to toughen up if he wanted to date someone in my circle. He asked if that was what he was to me, someone trying to qualify for my circle. I said he was being dramatic. After that, His questions became smaller. Not gone. Smaller. He still asked if I wanted coffee before presentations. He still sat with me in the library. He still walked me across campus when the sidewalks iced over. But he stopped telling me when something embarrassed him. He stopped giving me the parts of himself that might be used later. I called that maturity. Tessa called it progress. She said Adrian was learning my humor. She said some men needed social training and that I was doing him a favor. That was the kind of sentence Tessa used when she wanted to make me laugh. It worked. One Friday night, our group sat in the dorm common room with plastic cups and a bad movie playing in the background. Someone asked how Adrian and I had even started. I told the story like I always did. I said he had been sitting alone in the cafe, looking like a rejected extra from a library commercial, and I had taken pity on him. Brianna smiled, but her eyes moved to Adrian. Mark laughed hard. Tessa leaned into me and said I had saved him from a lifetime of eating lunch with professors. I added that I was still waiting for my thank you parade. Adrian was sitting on the arm of the couch. He smiled with his mouth, not his eyes. Then he stood and said he needed air. I followed him because leaving him alone would have made the room uncomfortable. Outside, the winter air bit through my sweater. Adrian stood near the bike racks, hands in his jacket pockets. He asked why every version of our beginning made him look pathetic. I told him because the real version was funny. He asked what the real version was. I said the real version was that I noticed him when nobody else did. He looked at me then, and for the first time I understood that he did not hear kindness in that sentence. He heard ownership. He heard that I thought I had found him on a lower shelf and lifted him into better light. He said he had liked me because I talked to him like he was already in the room, not like he needed to earn a place there. I should have held that sentence. I should have kept it. Instead, I told him he was making my humor into a crime. He looked past me toward the dorm windows. The party lights moved across his face. He said jokes still showed what people thought. I told him that if he wanted people to see him differently, he should act differently. That ended the conversation, but not because I won. Adrian simply stopped handing me words. He walked me back inside, stood beside me for another 20 minutes, and then said he had an early morning. After he left, Mark asked if my lost puppy had run away. I laughed. Tessa laughed. Brianna did not. The next morning, Adrian sent one text saying he hoped my presentation went well on Monday. No complaint, no fight, no long message. His phone stayed useful. His presence stayed steady. His place stayed beneath mine. At least that was the story I kept telling. After graduation, I thought the dynamic would grow up with us. That is what I told myself. The thing is, adult life has a way of making image feel like survival. In college, being admired was a game. At my agency, it became a skill. I learned how to make clients trust a logo, a sentence, a color, a room. I learned that people believed whatever looked confident enough. Adrian did not play that way. He moved into adult life with the same quiet discipline. He took a consulting role I did not fully understand. He worked from the small desk near our apartment window, took calls behind the bedroom door, and kept his calendar clean. Sometimes I saw formal names flash on his phone, names with titles, names that looked too polished for the man sitting barefoot at our kitchen table. I never asked much. I assumed his world was boring because he did not decorate it for me. My world was different. My co-workers wore sharp jackets and spoke like every coffee meeting could become a promotion. They knew how to enter a room. They knew how to make themselves look expensive even when their cards declined at dinner. Around them, Adrian's plainness started to feel like a problem with my own branding. I told him once that he needed better shoes for agency events. He said his shoes were clean. I told him clean was not the same as impressive. He looked down at them, then back at me, and asked who I was trying to impress for both of us. I said I was trying to make sure we did not look like we came from different levels. He said maybe we did. I hated that answer because he did not sound wounded. He sounded like he was putting something on a shelf and labeling it. At brunch 2 weeks later, the old group met at a place with tiny tables and loud plates. Tessa was there, and so were Mark, Brianna, and Camille from my agency. Camille had never known college Adrian, which made me eager to explain him before he could explain himself. That was what brand people did. We controlled first impressions. Someone asked how Adrian and I had met. It should have been simple. Cafe. Presentation. Rain. Walks home. The real version had enough softness in it to embarrass me. So I gave them the better version. I said Adrian was my college charity project that had somehow lasted 4 years. Mark laughed first because Mark always laughed before deciding if something was funny. Camille covered her mouth with her napkin and smiled. Tessa laughed too, but not as loudly as before. Brianna looked at Adrian. Adrian looked down at his water glass. The thing is, I took that as permission. He did not correct me. He did not say my name in that careful warning tone some men use when they are about to make a scene. He only adjusted the fork beside his plate and let the table have the joke. So I continued. I said he had been the kind of guy who made loneliness look scheduled. I said he probably would have married his laptop if I had not interrupted his life. I said some women liked bad boys, but I had gone through an experimental phase with a harmless one. Camille laughed harder at that. Mark slapped the table. Tessa's eyes moved to Adrian again. Adrian lifted his glass, took one drink and set it down quietly. The silence after that was small, but it had edges. Later, outside the restaurant, Adrian did not ask me why I had said it. He did not use big emotional language. His quiet was the point. He said I kept introducing him as someone I had rescued. I told him he should appreciate the fact that people liked our story. He said people liked the version where I was generous and he was grateful. I told him he was making brunch sound like a trial. He asked why I needed people to laugh at him before I could relax beside him. The sentence opened something for a second. I saw the cafe again. Not the joke version, the real one. Adrian sitting alone. Yes, but not pathetic. Just still. I saw him standing outside my statistics class with an umbrella, rain darkening his sleeves because he had held it more over me than himself. I saw the first night he walked me home and did not try to kiss me because I had said I was tired. I saw how safe I had felt with him when there had been no audience to impress. For one breath, the truth was close enough to touch. Maybe I had not made him small because he was small. Maybe I had made him small because the quiet, good parts of him did not need me to shine, and that scared me. Then a couple from brunch passed us on the sidewalk. Camille waved. Mark called out that Adrian had survived another Delaney roast. I smiled before Adrian could answer. That smile closed the door. I told Adrian safety was not the same as respect. I told him if he wanted to be taken seriously, he should stop standing there like a man waiting for instructions. He did not answer right away. Then he took his phone from his pocket, checked the screen, and placed it face down in his palm. The movement was small, almost nothing. He said he would not compete with an audience. I told him nobody had asked him to compete. He said no, I had asked him to lose politely. After that, he still came home. He still cooked when I worked late. He still paid attention to small things, but something in him had moved away from the table. I could feel it in the space between us at night, in the way he no longer explained who had called, in the way he stopped inviting me into parts of his day. I called it moodiness. At the agency, Camille asked if Adrian was always that calm. I said calm was a pretty word for boring. She laughed and told me I was savage. Savage sounded better than cruel. At home, Adrian's phone rang more often. He took the calls in the bedroom or on the balcony. Once I saw the name Richard Vale on the screen before he turned it over. I asked if that was work. He said it was family. I did not ask more. In my mind, family meant ordinary people in ordinary houses with ordinary problems. I could not connect that formal name to power. I could not connect Adrian to anything above me. That was my limit, not his. The dinner was planned in a group chat with too many emojis and not enough thought. It was supposed to be a casual Friday night. College friends? A few adult friends, one private table at a restaurant Camille liked because the lighting made everyone look like they had better skin. The thing is, I needed that dinner more than I admitted. Work had been tense. A client had rejected my campaign notes that week, and my manager had rewritten my best line in front of the team. I wanted a room where I could still control the image. Adrian saw the reservation on my phone while I stood at the kitchen counter. He asked who was going. I told him the usual people. Tessa, Mark, Brianna, Camille. Maybe Nolan if he stopped acting like he was above group plans. Adrian wiped the counter even though it was already clean. Then he asked if this dinner could just be normal. That was the word he used. Normal. I asked what that meant. He said he did not need praise. He did not need a speech. He only did not want to become the story again. The request was quiet. Too quiet. It should have been easy to say yes. Instead, I heard him trying to control the room before we even arrived. I heard him asking me to shrink my humour so he could feel bigger. I heard my mother's voice from years ago, telling me not to embarrass my father because he had a hard week, while my father sat silent at every family dinner like a folded napkin. So I told Adrian nobody thought about him that much. He dried his hands slowly. Then he said they thought about him because I had taught them how. That sentence landed in the kitchen and stayed there. I opened the fridge, not because I needed anything, but because cold air gave me something to do. I said he was making himself a victim. He asked if I thought asking not to be mocked made him weak. I told him weakness was needing rules for dinner. His face did not change much. That was always the problem. Adrian carried pain like a private document. You knew something existed, but you could not read it unless he let you. He said he was not asking for rules. He was asking for me to remember I was there with him, not above him. I told him that sounded like a line from a therapy podcast. He left the kitchen after that. Not dramatically. He took his phone, his glass of water, and walked to the balcony. The next evening, I went to Tessa's apartment before dinner. She had music playing low and clothes piled on her bed. I tried on 2 earrings in her mirror and told her Adrian was already tense about being roasted. Tessa laughed at first. She said he had always been too serious for a man with such soft eyes. I said maybe I should tell Camille the original story, the full one. How I had started dating him out of pity because he looked like the campus outsider nobody wanted. Tessa stopped clipping her bracelet. It was a tiny pause, but I saw it in the mirror. She said maybe that one was old. I turned around and asked since when she had become his lawyer. She said she was not defending him. She only thought some jokes expired. That annoyed me more than if she had shouted. Tessa had built half those jokes with me. She had been there in the dorm common room. She had laughed when I called him my charity boyfriend. Now she wanted to stand at a safer distance and pretend she had always known better. I told her she was getting boring too. She looked down at her bracelet and fastened it. She did not answer. On the way back to my apartment, my phone buzzed with a message from Adrian. He said he would be ready in 20 minutes. No extra words, no little heart, no question about what I wanted to eat before we left. At home, he was wearing a dark jacket. Simple, clean, fitted in a way I did not notice until later. At the time, I only thought he looked plain again. His phone rang while he was near the door. The name Richard Vale appeared on the screen. Full name, formal. No heart, no dad. I looked at it and asked if it was work. He declined the call and said it was family. Something in his tone made the word feel heavier than family should have felt. For a second, I almost asked who Richard was. Then I saw my reflection in the hallway mirror. Lipstick right, hair right, dress right. I looked like someone who belonged at the center of a table. So I did not ask. In the car, Adrian drove. I scrolled through the group chat and read Camille's message about saving the best seat for me. Adrian asked if I had told Tessa what I planned to say tonight. I said I had not planned anything. He said I always planned the first cut and then pretended the rest was improv. I laughed because it sounded too accurate. He did not laugh with me. This was the micro shift I made. Not remorse. Strategy. I reached over and touched his sleeve. I told him I would be nice if he stopped acting like I was dangerous. He looked at my hand on his arm. Then he asked if nice meant I would not humiliate him, or if it meant I would smile while doing it. I pulled my hand back. He parked near the restaurant and turned off the engine. His phone sat in the cup holder between us. He picked it up, looked at the dark screen, and put it in his jacket pocket without checking anything. That was his silent decision marker, though I did not understand it then. I thought he was sulking. I thought he was preparing to punish me with quiet. I thought the whole night would be another example of me trying to bring energy while he dragged the level down. Inside the restaurant, the air smelled like butter, perfume, and expensive wood polish. Camille waved from the private table near the glass entrance. Mark lifted both hands. Brianna smiled carefully. Tessa looked at me, then at Adrian, then down at her menu. Adrian pulled out my chair. I sat like a woman taking her place. The first half hour of dinner behaved itself. That is how I thought of it. Behaved. Drinks arrived. Menus opened. Camille talked about a client who wanted to make canned water look luxurious. Mark told a story about a gym membership he had used twice. Brianna asked Adrian about work, and he gave the kind of answer that closed more doors than it opened. He said consulting kept him busy. That was it. The thing is, answers like that made me look bad. Not directly, but socially. A woman's boyfriend says something flat, and the table turns to her to fix it, to add colour, to translate him into something people can enjoy. So I did what I had always done. I made him interesting by making him smaller. Camille asked how we had met, and before Adrian could give the rain and cafe version, I smiled and said college had been full of phases. Some girls went through a musician phase, some went through a bad boy phase. I had gone through my campus outsider phase, and somehow he was still sitting beside me. Mark laughed first. That mattered. Mark's laugh gave the table permission. Camille laughed next. Tessa gave a small sound that barely counted. Brianna looked at Adrian instead of at me. Adrian did not move much. He only placed his phone face down beside his water glass. I saw the motion and hated that it looked calm. So I continued. I said he used to sit alone near the vending machines like a man waiting for someone to assign him a personality. I said I had basically adopted him into normal social life. I said dating me had probably been the most exciting thing that ever happened to his calendar. The laughter came again, but thinner. Adrian cut one piece of food and set his fork down. I wanted him to react. That was the ugly part I did not name. His silence had stopped feeling like victory and started feeling like refusal. If he looked hurt, I could call him sensitive. If he looked angry, I could call him insecure. But calm gave me nothing to hold, so I reached for something sharper. I said he was sweet in the way an old family dog was sweet. Loyal, quiet, always there. Not impressive, but dependable. Brianna stopped smiling completely. Tessa touched my wrist under the table. A light touch. A warning from someone who used to hand me the knife and laugh. I pulled my hand away. Adrian looked at me then. His face was not red. His voice, when he spoke, stayed low. He asked if I was finished making myself feel taller. The table changed after that. Not loudly. Forks slowed. Camille looked down at her glass. Mark pressed his lips together like he was deciding if the next laugh was safe. I heard Adrian's question as an attack. I heard him calling me small in front of people. I heard him trying to move me beneath him. So I smiled. I told him not to act wounded when everyone knew I was joking. I said he knew my humor better than anyone. I said if he wanted me to describe him differently, he should have given me better material. Nobody laughed at that. That made me angry. I said he should be grateful because most women would never have looked twice at him in college. I said I had seen potential where everyone else saw a quiet guy with no place. I said I gave him a circle. There it was. The voluntary line. Clear. Public. Mine. Adrian looked at me for a long time. Then he said I was right about one thing. He said I had given him a circle. I leaned back because I thought he was finally admitting the level between us. Then he added that I had also taught the circle how to laugh at him. Tessa's phone was on the table, screen down. I texted her under the table because I wanted backup without having to ask out loud. I wrote that Adrian was making it weird and that she needed to say something funny. Her phone lit up. She looked at the message. She did not pick up the phone. That was all. One small absence where there had always been applause. I turned back to Adrian with heat in my face and said the one thing I knew was true. I said he had lied too. I said he had never trusted me enough to tell me who he really was, what calls he took, why he kept parts of his life sealed off like I was not good enough to know. Adrian did not deny it. That gave me a brief, clean satisfaction. He could not deny it because it was true. He had kept doors closed. He had let me believe ordinary things because he never opened the larger ones. He said he had not told me everything. I asked if he expected a medal for admitting that. He said no. He said he had hoped for a long time that I might become curious before I became cruel. That was his final honest statement. Not a speech, not a plea, just one clean line laid on the table. I refused it the easiest way I knew. I said curiosity was hard when the subject was boring. No one moved. Adrian's eyes lowered to his phone. It was still face down beside his glass. The restaurant music played softly above us, some slow piano version of a song I almost recognized. A waiter passed behind Mark with a tray of desserts for another table. The world kept doing normal things while our table went quiet. I tried to make myself louder than the silence. I told Adrian that he was punishing everyone with his mood. I told him this was why I had to make jokes, because if I did not, his dullness would drain every room we entered. I said I was the only reason people had ever remembered him. Mark stared at his plate. Camille took her phone from beside her napkin and tapped the screen. A few seconds later, I saw her story disappear from the top of my feed. She had been recording earlier. She had been ready to use the dinner as entertainment. Now she was managing her own exposure, quietly stepping away before the scene attached to her. That was how our circle worked. Everyone enjoyed the heat until it could burn their own name. Adrian lifted his water glass and took one drink. Then his phone rang. At first, the sound was ordinary. A clean vibration against the table, then the ringtone. But because nobody was speaking, it cut through everything. The phone lit up. The name on the screen was Richard Vale. Mark saw it first. His eyes moved from the phone to Adrian's face. Camille's hand stopped above her purse. Brianna looked at the screen and then at me, like she was waiting for me to understand something I should have understood already. I did not understand. Not yet. The phone rang again. Adrian let it ring long enough for everyone to read the name. Then he answered. Adrian did not put the call on speaker. He did not have to. The private dining area had gone so quiet that his father's voice carried through the space between the plates. Richard Vale called him son. Mark whispered the name under his breath. Camille's face changed because she knew it from work. Brianna looked down at her napkin. Tessa stayed still, her eyes on the table. Richard said the car was outside. He said the Maybach was waiting near the front entrance. He said the jet would be ready within the hour, and they were leaving for the coast as soon as Adrian came out. Then Richard asked if Adrian wanted to bring his new girlfriend. The word girlfriend put every eye on me. Adrian looked at me and said no. His father asked if something had happened. Adrian said I had already said enough that night. He said the only place I had earned a seat was behind bars if I kept turning private humiliation into public lies. Richard gave one short laugh through the phone, not warm, not loud, controlled. I reached for my glass and moved it 2 inches, then moved it back. That was all my hand could do. Adrian ended the call and stood. He placed money on the table for his part of dinner. Then he said he had wanted to know if I could love him when I thought he had nothing to offer, except himself. No one defended me. Outside, the Maybach waited by the glass entrance with the back door open. The driver nodded to Adrian by name. I followed him, talking fast. I said everyone joked. I said he had let me look stupid. I said he should have told me who his father was. Adrian said I was right. He had not told me. Then he said the most humiliating thing that night was not what I had said about him. It was staying with me long enough to be called my boyfriend. He got into the car. Before the door closed, he said I had spent the whole dinner proving we were not on the same level. Then he said I was right. The door closed in my face. 3 days later, a courier came to my apartment while Brianna was there returning a bracelet I had left in her car. The envelope carried the letterhead of Richard Vale's office. I signed for it and stood on the step with my name pressed into the receipt. Inside was a formal cease and desist notice. It named the dinner, the public jokes, the story Camille had deleted, and the false claims I had already started drafting online. It gave me 48 hours to remove any posts and warned that further statements would be treated as defamation. Brianna read the first page once and said I should stop talking about him. She did not say it cruelly. That made it harder to answer. After that, Adrian's side of the closet stayed empty. My rent became mine alone. Tessa stopped answering my calls. Camille avoided me at agency events and deleted every photo from that dinner. Mark told people the story was not funny anymore. The thing is, I thought keeping Adrian beneath me protected my image. It only showed everyone what my image had been hiding. I thought his calm made him weak. It had only made him patient. His phone sat in my memory face down beside a water glass. The door did not slam, and somehow that made it worse.